Hi, this is Aaron Wilson from KPRC2 Sports. I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, where the NFL owners' meetings have ended, and had a chance to talk to Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, in addition to team president Mike Timone. And we covered our conversation with D'Amico Ryans in a separate video. So let's start with Cal and Hannah and kind of where things stand with the team. And I'll start with just really the state of the team. Hannah was of the opinion that the team was going all the way last year. She felt like they were really close. Cal called it darn close. And, you look at their reasons for optimism, they feel like, taking another step, the way they put it. The Texans have a young core of players. Starting at quarterback with CJ Stroud. Cal praised him heavily, as did Hannah. You can tell how they feel about CJ. And the commitment they'll make to him in a year, they'll show him exactly how much they love CJ Stroud. I expect that to be a big-time contract. I think that will come in as one of the top quarterback deals. We'll see, what is the market there at that time? Is it the most expensive deal? Is it in the top three? How does it work? All that stuff. But, yeah, CJ Stroud's future with the Texans, quite assured, I would say. Looking at the state of the team, though, and having so much on defense and having an offense they feel good about the reasons why they overhauled things with the offensive line. And moving on from coaches. And a lot of that has to do with their trust in Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans. And they repeatedly emphasized how much they believe in Nick's ability to draft. They said it's kind of creating good problems to have, that they can't pay everybody. And they're going to try to take care of as many young players as possible. They feel great about the $90 million investment in new money for Derek Stingley Jr. because Cal said he earned it. And that's going to be an organizational philosophy. You heard that from D'Amico Ryans about the message it sends. An article on Click to Houston about that and who's up next. And sources tell me that there's mutual interest between the Texans and nickel Jalen Petrie, who is eligible for a contract, and he's going to be healthy coming off of the torn pectoral. Everything has been preliminary at this point, but at some point I think they will open talks and see if they can find common ground financially. I don't like to make predictions on deals like that where it's a nickel, and the nickel market has a wide range of values where you have Diomedor Lenore for about $17 million and change, and then you have Nate Hobbs in the $12 million range. So we'll see, where does he come in. To me, 3 years, $45 million, that would be a great contract. We'll see. Maybe I'll be guessing right on that one. We'll see if it happens. But yeah, I don't like to make a lot of predictions because negotiations are very fluid. You don't know what will happen. Circling back to the McNairs and looking at how they're feeling about the organization and the state of things, they really like what Nick and D'Amico are doing. They say that they don't let their egos get in the way, that they work together collaboratively, and this is what they hoped for a while. And now they have it, where they have some synergy between the top two decision makers on the football side. And I would say, that lines up with everything I'm hearing as well. Just that, they have had a good collaboration, and Nick's getting the players that D'Amico wants. Everything is done in terms of a lot of communication. They talk a lot. They're in really constant communication, doing these deals together, and just working on trying to upgrade the roster in a variety of ways, machinations in terms of trade market, free agency, re-signing their own players, and extensions, and more. So, there are a lot of things going on with that. When you think about, the state of the team or where they were a few years ago, 3-13-1 with Lovie Smith, they make the playoffs, they win the division, and Cal felt like even though they made it to the divisional round and they lose to the Baltimore Ravens, he felt like they were, a ways. They weren't close. But now he feels like they're on the cusp of something. And that's been the description by a lot of people around the league, and just hanging out at the meetings and talking with various general managers, coaches, owners, a lot of respect for the Texans and what they're building. And, they're a contender. And I think that's, not a real revelation there, but obviously they're thought of differently than they were. They weren't just a flash in the pan. I thought the Super Bowl hype in the offseason last year was a bit overblown, and a lot of it just kind of based on, well, they expect this player to take this leap or to do more. Well, The offensive line regressed. The play calling wasn't on point, and that affected CJ Stroud. And the running game really wasn't all that it could be, even though Joe Mixon had an excellent year and was in the Pro Bowl. They could have done even more. So, in my opinion, they're right now, I expect them to be a playoff team. I'm not sure, that they have gotten to a point where they're better than the teams they've lost to the past 2 years in the playoffs. It kind of remains to be seen. And as Miko Ryan will tell you, you're not guaranteed anything, which is obvious. All this stuff is on paper. They're not automatically a playoff team just because they're a playoff team. You got to earn it every year. We don't know. What are the Titans going to be like? What are the Colts? What are the Jaguars? Every year you start fresh. But, the Texans are still my favorites to win the AFC South. And then when you get in the tournament, like Bill Parcells used to say, anything can happen. And looking at where they're at from a business standpoint, and we'll get into some stadium stuff, and that's not the most exciting topic for you guys or for me, but it is in the news. So the focus right now is just on renovations. There's no talk of relocation. That's not what they're doing. I think it's unlikely that they would, have some big stadium project, move to Katy or the Woodlands, just examples of places where maybe you could have the land and the infrastructure to put something together. It's unfortunate with NRG that there's not a lot around there to do, and that people can't really hang out, do a lot of things after the game. I talk with Mike Timone. He makes a great impression. You can tell, with his stadium background, how sharp he is, how much he's on it when it comes to these stadium issues, and they're in communication. They are trying to be proactive about a lease that has 7 years left in their conversations with Harris County and the rodeo, all their partners, and the city, as Cal McNair said, could get involved too on this one. So we'll see. Don't know who would pay for all these renovations. I'm expecting Texas to contribute, and they have a good lease, but at the same time, they're not making money off of these events that are held at the stadium. So, that there's some things that go from being a tenant. Yes, and they have a good lease. Obviously, it's favorable, but they've also spent money on refurbishing the stadium and improvements over the years. There will be new video boards this year. That's already, budgeted for and in the plans. So, what all this means is, I think people will be watching games at NRG Stadium for years and years to come. But they've got to, put some polish on this place and, just get it where everything is just the way it should be. I talked with Mike. He said he wants a world-class experience for fans. And, his background, he's out of Dallas, and he's previously with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But he's worked internationally. He's worked also nationally with SoFi Stadium, with the Rams and the Chargers, and with Real Madrid, the soccer team. So he has a lot of connections, and he's new to being a team president, but he's not new to sports business. So, I think they made a good hire with Mike, and they expect him to do some really good things. And obviously, it's just good to meet him the first time, first impressions, and hanging out with him some at the Breakers Hotel. Great talking with him. So good conversations, and look forward to seeing what he'll do, with the stadium and more, because that's not all that's under the auspices of a team president. There's a lot of things in terms of the entertainment, the communications department, the food at the stadium, concessions, all of those things, philanthropy. You wear a lot of hats if you're a team president, as did Jamie Roots, and after him, Greg Grissom. So now Mike Timone in the president's seat, and getting up to speed, and new to Houston. So just kind of getting to know everyone and getting his feet wet. In terms of other things with the Texans, you look at the contracts, you look at the things they've done, and talking to Cal McNair, and I wanted to get his opinion on the offensive line, and he said what everyone's going to say. Let's put the best five out there and figure out where they should line up. And that kind of brings me to Titus Howard, and a comment that D'Amico Ryan said, citing his positional flexibility. So he could be guard, could be tackle. It's still fluid on what position is he going to play. Injury update on Trent Brown is, he's doing better. I think he's going to, be able to do something during training camp. He's getting healthy, so I expect something from Trent. I don't expect a lot of activity from him in the spring. On Christian Harris, they feel like he's healthy now after the calf and ankle injuries, and he's going to be someone that they can put on the field during the spring, and they hope for a healthy season. They did not guarantee him a starting job. So I think there's going to be a competition between him, Henry Toto, and newcomer EJ Speed. So we'll see how that winds up. Who's going to be the will linebacker next to Mike linebacker Aziz Al-Shaair, and team captain too. So that'll be interesting to watch. And, it was another topic. I haven't gotten into this one yet, but talking to D'Amico Ryans about the tight end room, which I thought could have done more last year, especially Dalton Schultz from a blocking standpoint and more production as a pass catcher. And he's feeling really good about Brevin Jordan, and he expects a lot from him. He's making a good comeback from that torn ACL, and so is Cade Stover from shoulder surgery. So a couple of guys there that are trying to get healthy. And then with Dalton, they just want to get more out of him. Obviously, they like the background that Nick Haley has with coaching tight ends like Rob Gronkowski, DeGronk, and Martellus Bennett, some real characters that he worked with as a younger coach with the Patriots. And yes, Gronk was all pro. Wasn't Nick Haley out there catching the passes, but he was coaching him and coming up with stuff to help accentuate all of Rob's talents and just rare skills as a big-time tight end. I've heard a lot of Gronkowski games over the years, going back to even when I was in Baltimore. And, just one of the best tight ends ever, Hall of Fame credentials. So that's good. I had a couple other conversations that I think are applicable to what you guys are interested in. You probably saw the videos. Sean McVay, he feels like Nick Haley has an infectious energy, those are his words, and he's been preparing to be a play caller for a very long time. He's been working on this even while he was tight ends coach and passing game coordinator, preparing for the moment when he would be a play caller, going back to when he was working for Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. So you have a lot of years to go into becoming a 42-year-old offensive coordinator. He's really paid his dues, climbed the ladder from his days as a student assistant at John Carroll University, and you can just tell how much Sean McVay, how highly he thinks of him, and Jerry Shaplinsky, a senior assistant for the Texans that comes over from the Rams, and he's also a John Carroll guy. So you have a lot of John Carroll guys: Nick Caserio, Frank Ross, Jerry Shaplinsky. You have DJ Debick in the pro personnel department, and of course, he didn't go to John Carroll, but Ben McDaniels, the receivers coach, passing game coordinator, another Ohio guy. He is from Canton, and a lot of these guys, including Haley, looked up to Ben and Josh McDaniels' dad, who's a high school football coaching legend in Canton, Canton McKinley. That was Tom McDaniels. So, we'll see. It all sounds good on paper. Everything, you got to see it on the field. But that's not, we can't just wait for that. We got to talk about it now, right? So that's why it's fun to chop it up with you guys and get into it all. And, I thought it was a good time at the meetings. I had some good conversations, got a few good food stories. I met Guy Fieri and say hello to Flavortown. He was cool to meet him. Didn't talk to him very long, but we took a picture. Some of you guys may have seen on the internet. And, it was just good to talk with a lot of people, owners, people I know from other teams, and just kind of take the temperature of the NFL. As you know, the tush push did not get overturned, but it's tabled, and right now they had 16 votes in favor of changing the rule, and, adopting the Green Bay Packers initiative and proposal to get rid of the tush push. I don't have a big opinion on that, other than I think that I worry about the center, Cam Jurgens. I mean, he had back surgery after the season. Nobody's talking about that. That he, maybe that play affects him and his back. That doesn't sound real fun to get shoved in the backside and who's with a bunch of weight coming behind you and a quarterback that can squat over 600 pounds. But Cam Jurgens, salute to you. Good for you for doing that. But I wonder, is the tush push, are there rules? Is that a rule where it's going to change? The dynamic kickoff, they want even more returns, so touchbacks now start out at 35, so they're going to have to kick it short, and we're going to see some more returns, which I think is good news for the Texans. Having a Braxton Berrios, having a Damian Pierce, having some guys that can return kickoffs. And the Texans are good at covering kickoffs, so this should be something that I would say, we'll see how. I can't wait to ask him, but what does Frank Ross, Texas special teams coordinator, think about that rule? And that was changed. So there wasn't a whole bunch of changes, but that was one of them, and an important one, I think, for the Texans. So now, next steps are draft visits, and I expect them to meet with some more defensive tackles out of college from Texas at some point. I think they're going to meet with Kenneth Grant from Michigan later in the month. He'll get on the list, and you'll have a lot of guys coming to NRG Stadium in the weeks and months to come. I previously reported a ton of them. You can check a lot of them out on my Twitter/X page and here, as well as at click2houston.com. All of my content is free. You can read me at click2houston.com. You can watch me on TV at KPRC2. I'll be on Sports Sunday with Ari Alexander and Randy McElroy, so we'll have a segment on the owners' meetings and kind of where things stand with the Texans. And, of course, on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Aaron Wilson 7128. I embrace all the social media. I like it. I am not a dinosaur. I feel like I have to adapt or die. When I started doing this, not to make myself sound too old, they didn't have email when I was in college, and then social media didn't exist. Eventually they had Facebook, but for a long time there was no Twitter, and you'd break a story, and you'd have to email it to Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk to kind of get credit for your story, so people would know that you have a story. Because it was harder to find stuff without social media. You just have to do web searches, that kind of thing. So yeah, I like it. I think it's fun, and it's fun to talk to you guys. I appreciate all the comments and likes. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, it's free, and we're getting close to 5,000 subscribers. We'd really like to get those numbers up and get to 10,000 as soon as possible, and it does help, and have some more content planned, and eventually want to start going live and having some more interactive things with you. But this is kind of what I'm comfortable with right now with doing the videos, and my wife Shannon makes these thumbnails, and appreciate all the praise for her thumbnails. I feel like her thumbnails are the best part of the channel. And no, she's not making me say that. I feel that way. I feel like shout out to my wife Shannon, who puts up with me and me being a workaholic and obsessed with the NFL and all these things. But it's fun, and this is the only way I know how to do it. You gotta go after it. You gotta be aggressive. You gotta work hard, foster the relationships it takes to have the stories, and just do your job, like they say in New England. But I believe in that. Yeah, I think that is it's well said by Bill Belichick. Yeah, do your job, just do the best you can, and I hope everybody's having a good spring. I'm looking forward to getting back to Texas tonight. I've been in Florida for a few days and some sun, and had a lot of fun. So yeah. Until next time, look forward to our next conversation. Thanks a lot.